Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 7, I believe, of the Second Aid Show. And boy, do we have a really interesting video for you guys today, and I think we have a lot to cover. So, firstly, one thing I want to get forwards first is that unless you've been living under a rock, Amazon has moved production to the UK, and this is from New Zealand. They've left New Zealand. They've moved. This is all from the official press release that's come out. So yeah, we're going to be giving more information around this, the real reasons behind this move, and why it's happened. So, firstly, just like usual, joining me first is Lakitia. Hello, my friend.
Hello, I'm glad to be back. It's been a tumultuous couple of weeks, to say the least.
Indeed, it has everything from this Amazon show recently, and also welcome to Kyle.
Thanks again for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Indeed. And I think the first thing we want to set off is that I want to play this clip last week from the Second Aid show's last one, so last Sundays, where I said this as when I was explaining what we're going to be talking about next week. think I think we've covered everything quite well, and I know before we wrap up, I forgot to do this for the last few episodes, but we'll be talking about it next week. And we have some so next week's episode we have some quite interesting. I know people have been asking me a lot. You said earlier this year that Amazon will be filming back to back season 1, season 2. How come that's not come to pass? And what's the updates to season 2? Everything around that. And yeah, so yeah, we'll be covering everything, all the updates around that on the next week's show. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So Amazon have just effectively ruined this week's big story. I'm not sure if that's intentional or unintentional or not. We'll leave that out to the jury to decide. But yes, I did specifically mention why Amazon's not filming season 1 and season 2 back to back. We'll get into those reasons in today's video as well. So I think the main thing I want to talk about is that we're going to be covering a lot of information in today's video, and I think if you need to pause at any time because it is quite a lot to take in, and also for legal reasons, I am not a lawyer or have any clear or strength of legal understanding around any of these, because we're going to be looking at some contracts as well and around that. So I have gotten consultation advice from some other just from lawyers as well, and or people who are in the legal circle and would know a bit more than I do. So yeah, thank you to all them, and I'll mention that when we get to that part. But firstly, we've got the press release, and the reason you'll see in a second why I want this press release to be read out, but I think I'll have Lakitia do the honors.
All right, here we go. So the press release goes. We want to thank the people and the government of New Zealand for their hospitality and dedication and providing Lord of the Rings series with the incredible place to begin the epic journey. We are grateful to the New Zealand Film Commission, the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, Tourism New Zealand, Auckland Unlimited, and others for their tremendous collaboration that supported the New Zealand film sector and the local economy during the production of season 1. As we look to relocate the production to the UK, we do not intend to actively pursue season 1 MOU 5% financial uplift with the New Zealand government or preserve the terms around that agreement. However, we respectfully defer to our partners and will remain in close consultation with them around the next steps.
Thank you for that. And I think it's safe to say, like Kitty or Carl, I think on Reddit, even here on Discord servers, on Twitter, of course, Instagram, Facebook, there's been lots of speculation to why Amazon have, out of nowhere, which is interesting, made this move, this jump across. I think, is that safe to say as of right now?
Absolutely, this has been huge.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it seemed really abrupt and like you said, it came out of nowhere. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
So yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, that was going to be the main news for this week's episode. But luckily, we have all the reasons why, and there are two main reasons. And I know a lot of the speculation has been around COVID in New Zealand, but no one's really gotten the actual COVID reason behind it. And then the second is a non-COVID reason. So I think should we just get right into it?
Absolutely.
Indeed. So the first thing that I want to mention is the COVID reason. So there's two, as I said earlier, we're going to stem through each one. So I've seen on just everywhere, as I mentioned earlier, on all those platforms, people saying, is it because all the lockdowns are happening, or is it because all lots of the there's lots of cast members from England? Is it all this? Is it all that? Has this all played? And indeed, all those things have played into it, having to have these just out of nowhere lockdowns in New Zealand, all that stuff has played into it, and that is what I want to get out of the way. But those are all underlying factors to why, and the reason I would like to mention that is because when we go back to Bernie Sanders, I think who said it, the MOU, and he specifically mentioned that. And the reason I want to get into that in a bit, you'll see later, because that was signed. That's a post-lockdown, post-COVID agreement and signed. Because Amazon had an original MOU before lockdown, but then it got renegotiated due to lockdown measures, and that's where a lot of those old filming is going to be. This, I think it was for 2022 and all of that. So stuff like that came out when we had to look at all the marketing plan stuff being going through October, finalizing it. All that I'll show on screen right now. This is all from this MOU, and I'll explain the link to that in a second. But the main COVID reason for Amazon moving production from New Zealand to England was the slow vaccine rollout. Amazon were initially in talks with the New Zealand government about how slow the vaccine rollout has been, and now that other countries are vaccinating faster, New Zealand no longer has an advantage anymore. So there was probably earlier this year, there was this discussion between New Zealand and I think from what one of the sources said, that Amazon was frustrated, not so with the New Zealand government, but with the lack of vaccine rollout. And the reasoning for this is it's expensive for the production company to continuing operate at a level required if crew aren't vaccinated, and this was the final causing factor in the move. And the reason, so the link here is that yes, a lot of the cast are from England, yes, for example, they have to have lockdowns, have to have these 14-day inquiries. These are annoying things, and that does play on this. But when Amazon signed the second MOU that person is talking about, they already knew this. This is probably after August, so between August and December, this was signed because it was past post COVID. So that's the important thing, is that these those are reasons, those are legitimate reasons, but Amazon knew of those reasons and still continued to stay in New Zealand and commit to the 5 seasons. So to the end of December, when all these MOUs, the second ones were signed, Amazon still thought, despite the 14-day quarantines, despite the cost having to come there and back, that still it makes sense. But now the causing factor, the reason that changed Amazon, is this vaccine rollout in New Zealand. And I'm not sure, recently is quite, the vaccines have started to go back up now, hasn't it? I think. Is that correct? In New Zealand?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah,
Hmm.
it sounds like they're gaining some traction, and I
Mm-hmm.
know their prime minister came out recently and said her goal was to focus on getting everyone vaccinated by the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's also
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that is, and that is legitimate. That's what we're saying right now. Hey, fellowship, they are starting to vaccinate again in New Zealand. The vaccines started to come through, but this decision was, of course, made earlier on, probably when. So yeah, Amazon and New Zealand have had these talks, and Amazon's getting a bit frustrated around that. And then, but first of all, that's the first bit. I've got more quotes to come out. But what do you guys think of that? Does it seem like that's kind of a bummer that just because of this specifically COVID reason that they've had to change it all and move?
Yeah, indeed. And especially like despite the fact that this production has been halted in early 2020 due to the pandemic outbreak, they still had a really easy time filming season one comparing to what the situation was like in most of the other countries. Like, for example, Witcher and The Wheel of Time had to pause the production several times, for
Mm-hmm.
instance. And The Witcher even had an outbreak among the crew. So, meanwhile, cameras have been rolling relatively carefree in New Zealand due to their really good management of the pandemic. So, but now the situation has really changed dramatically, and it seems that Amazon is leaving the country due to the fact.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's disheartening. It's it's not only is it sad to see Middle Earth leaving, its rightful home for the last couple decades. It's sad for the cast and crew who spent so much time there, and the crew who aren't going to have jobs going forward, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the worst bit. Yeah.
Yep, Indeed, and I think we'll get on to later about the crew and how this has affected them. But the thing that I want to get onto now is around the fact that, firstly, I reported earlier this year Amazon are filming season 1 and season 2 back to back. They're going to segue through that. Do you guys remember that announcement? That's before you
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
channel.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's what Amazon were thinking too at that time. I'm not saying that just because, oh, that means I'm wrong then, but legitimately, deadline, everyone else was ruled that Amazon were going to film season 1 and season 2 back to back. Then
Yeah.
it changed. It changed to Amazon not filming season 1 and season 2 back to back, but instead Amazon are going to take a break, and they're going to film in New Zealand starting from March. This was the next plan. This is the next bit. A week before the announcement, a source commented, quote, Amazon is taking a long break and going on hiatus, partially because of the slow vaccine rollout. At this time, it was thought that Amazon would take a break and come back to New Zealand next year. So that is what that source at that time was thinking. So it did seem like that Amazon was still wanting to go for New Zealand, and this is probably a stay in New Zealand. It did sound like that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't think it's an easy move, one way or the other, right? I don't think an easy
Mhm.
decision, and it's certainly not going to be physically an easy thing to do. So it would have been
Mhm.
best for everyone if they could have kept it where it was.
And then, yeah, indeed, and that's why the second thing was Amazon are going to move it until March 2022 filming. But then we have that first bit about the vaccines getting slower and slower. For example, like GSR Productions in New Zealand, Amazon. This is the $1 billion show. This is the one that's got so much money. Despite it being that much, the problem with this, the not a lot of vaccines coming through, is with the cost and having to maintain some high levels of production costs due to that to keep everyone safe. And because I know in New Zealand the COVID cases are really low, but Amazon, it seemed that Amazon still had to take these precautions even until then. So yeah, and then I had so many people saying, of course, even people, I like to mention this, is why I don't want to go over it too much, but people who worked on the show saying to me, but there's not a lot of cases in New Zealand. I don't know why this is happening, and it's like, yeah, that is true, but it seems that Amazon, they were taking those extra precautions and the financial cost. That's why season 2 was going to be filmed back to back like originally. Because if there was no COVID, Amazon would have filmed season 1 and season 2 back to back in New Zealand. But then this is the second part where it gets quite technical, quite legal. So that's the COVID side. I know no one really, I don't think so far, no one actually got the actual COVID reasons due to the vaccine rollout is the thing that pushed Amazon over the line. All the other factors are true, but that's the thing that really got Amazon. But now I think we have to move on to. Of course, I don't want to do. I think before we go into this stuff, like Katie and Carl, we want this show to be well. We want this to be successful, don't we?
Absolutely. Yes, we do.
100%.
And for that reason, I'm not going to specify what. I don't want to get. First of all, I doubt I will get into legal trouble because it's just me reporting stuff. But still, I've just taken the liberty of not to report what's happened, who the things are, the parties involved. But the second main reason for the move of production from New Zealand to England was due to an investigation by a New Zealand governmental regulator, and this investigation was on set and for the production of the show. And due to legal reasons, we can't state or imply what this investigation was about. And we don't know that this investigation is still ongoing or it has finished, but an investigation by a New Zealand government regulator. I'm not gonna specify which, but there's plenty of boards, and then they have gone and done this investigation on set and the production of the show. And this is one of the points that goes on to that MOU that not Bernie, about to say Bernie Sanders, Vernon Sanders, I think. Um,
Bernie would be more entertaining.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, so yeah. And then this frustrated Amazon having this investigation happen and caused to find a failure to find an agreement for a season 2 memorandum. I think Kari said it quite well. MOM of
Memo.
understanding, memo of
Memo. Yeah.
understanding. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so this is where it gets technical. But before that, I know we can't comment on what the thing is, but it is a shame as well that this is another reason why um this production has to move, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's intense, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I don't know. Maybe it's this is something routine for this particular government body to be doing on. It's a huge production, so something's gonna go
Mm-hmm.
wrong somewhere.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I certainly think this wasn't what the government intended or wanted,
no,
like,
Yeah,
to push them out of the door.
100%.
because New Zealand wants Amazon to stay in this as much as possible. If you, we
Yeah.
saw, remember those contracts that me and Hen did a while ago? This is the home of
Mhm,
Middle Earth. This is that, all of that.
mhm.
But
Yeah.
um, now what's happening here is that, actually, before we get into the contract and legal stuff, this is some quotes from some crew members. They said, on the final days of shooting a few weeks ago, there was a buzz about first seasons being filmed back to back or having a few months in between, because that's what was going to have, a few months in between, then film season 2. It was always assumed we'll all be able to keep our jobs. So this is what it felt like apparently on set, and that does feel a bit more heartbreaking, doesn't it? We'd assumed we'd all be able to keep our jobs.
Yeah,
This
I
is the
think
most
that's
terrible part.
yeah,
It's
this is part of
And I remember that.
exactly, and especially, sorry, please
No,
go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that being told just like that out of the blue, it just makes me really sad for people who, reportedly worked so hard on making season one the absolute best.
Indeed. And I don't want to go like over too much. I've of course had so of course some people reach out and see what's going on, but of course I hope, if for those crew members wondering why, here's the video now explaining it all. So um I think, yep, we've got that from the crew, so they even themselves didn't know. And I think I read somewhere that it was 20 minutes before the announcement for the crew, and then it was a few hours for the New Zealand government. And that few hours for the New Zealand government is critical for what comes out in a bit. But of course, here at Fellowship of Fans, we have the season one and the series overall MOM, or Memo of Understanding. So we have got the contracts they signed. I remember some of it, we showed some of it in that video about which had all the plans. And I think as we go down here, it says season one Memo of Understanding for the 5% uplift in relation to the production of an untitled Amazon project between the Ministry of Business and Employment, New Zealand Tourism Board, New Zealand Film Commission, Amazon Studios LLC, GSR Productions Limited. And this is what Vernon Sanders was talking about. This is the agreement for the 5% uplift that Amazon have no longer adhered to, and they want to break up. And this is where I want to thank a really good YouTuber, Joshua Scott, also known as Tolkien Lord JR, Tolkien Law on Twitter and on YouTube as well. He's another YouTuber, and he is also a lawyer. Of course, he, as often lawyers lot say, maybe he's fully worked into contracts, but still someone of a better legal understanding than I do, has come back to me and said, just gone over these contracts and come back to me and given me this information. So the first bit is clause in this contract is clause 7.6. So Lakitika, are you able to look at these right now? Do you have them on you?
yeah.
Yep. So
Mm-hmm. Yep.
this is in the official memo. So what we're seeing is what the New Zealand government will be seeing and what Amazon know of. If New Zealand ceases to be the series location, if Amazon determines that New Zealand will no longer be the series location in respect for any season, Amazon will give written notice to their New Zealand FC, sounds like football club, but Film Commission, there we go, of Amazon's decision to relocate the production of UAP not less than 12 months before any public announcement about the new series location, and no subsequent season of UAP will be eligible for the 5% uplift. So Amazon haven't decided that they no longer want the uplift. They legally cannot have this uplift now. And what I've heard is that why the New Zealand government are so frustrated and so heartbroken is that Amazon have not adhered to this not less than 12 months before any public announcement. Because how long was it again before the New Zealand government knew? When was it again?
I think he said it was a matter of a few hours
Yeah,
Yeah,
before they
like the
made that
same
official
day.
press release. Yeah.
it was on Friday the 13th, and
Mm.
it was a few hours before it became public. And this is where it gets into murky waters, because if Amazon wanted to, so Amazon have clearly enacted this clause in some way for this memo, and what they have done here is saying that removing location, Amazon will be like, okay, that is fine, but you should have notified us if you were going to announce this on the 14th. You should have announced on the 13th. They should have announced this a year earlier, and of course, so they should have said this in 2020. And of course, maybe Amazon did not maybe want to make their decision and say, for example, of course, nothing can be true. For example, and I know this could have been signed. This MOU could have been signed after Amazon a year, so this maybe it didn't enact in time. That could be a possibility, but still, you could have told, for example, in January, February, March, April, even maybe even a month beforehand notice would have worked. But here it clearly states it's not less than 12 months before any public announcement about the new series location. So do
And
you
it
think?
also makes me wonder why they rushed the public announcement. I mean,
Yeah.
why the need to announce it like right now? It
And
just doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't want to save my video. I'm not. Yeah. I hope you guys can realize that I'm not gonna go over the top and start getting like cocky and saying like, oh, because of my video, I'll never say that. And of course, maybe that's the only public thing. Because I did mention that last week. Maybe that did play Amazon's hand, but I personally, for me, I quite doubt that. But I think it
It's
just.
interesting timing for sure.
Maybe it's one massive coincidence, but this is the
So it's all
problem.
your fault.
But this is where it comes to problem. It seems, I hope from what you can tell so far, Amazon and is so sad because we saw those New Zealand announcements on Twitter. It's all thank you to the New Zealand crew. There's 8 threads of just all these production members, and now it seemed like Amazon New Zealand were the best, and now Amazon have not given written notice. And the thing I don't get is because, of course, I said this was a post-COVID renegotiation, so it has to be from August or after, which means that maybe Amazon didn't make the decision until maybe early this year, and that makes sense. But then according to this, they can't do that. But even I'm sure if Amazon had even given New Zealand 4 or 5 months, of course you can't pay to the contract. That makes sense. But if you give Amazon 4 or 5 months, then I mean New Zealand 4 or 5 months, they might be okay. Okay, that's fine. Do you get what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say? So
Yeah, it would have been less of a shock, I'm sure. I'm actually just reading here in section 4.6. It says no surprises. Parties agree and acknowledge that they will A, act in good faith towards one another, and B, will operate on no surprises policy as between one another that keeps all parties informed of potentially contentious issues and or
ooh,
issues that they may have a significant impact on the current and ongoing operation or implementation of this series MOU or season MOU.
bloody
That went
hell,
well.
Yeah.
bloody hell, really? I
Yeah.
haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's
If you
4.6.
okay, so that's news to me as well. That just shows just how I think I'll have it on screen right now. Carl will send a screenshot of that later, but this up because I can't see it right now. Just commenting on that from what Carl said, it just shows that Friday announcing it, you could tell that I forgot the New Zealand minister. He was sad, and this is the reason why New Zealand are sad. If of course they'd be sad if oh, let's say if Amazon were going to leave New Zealand and they're going to move production, they'd be sad. But maybe a year, if they had told them maybe 6 months to 8 months ago they were going to do this, and that would make sense. But doing it hours before, and then I'm looking at this memo of understanding, it just. And of course, I make this channel because I think this show will be great, and that I have a whole lot of faith, because the reason why was because of it was tackling the second age. Because if I'll tell you right now, if it was an Aragon show like Green Rooms, I would not have made this channel in that
No.
sense.
Yeah.
No way.
I
I would not been as interested, because with Tolkien media, I love the movies, but I love the books more. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
any of you have the same way, but that's how I do it in the same way, and that's why it
Yeah.
leading me on to as well. I know some people are heartbroken they live in New Zealand because they love the movies. I totally understand that as well. Of course, I'm not
Yeah.
in that category of hundreds. Of course, it is still sad this has been for visual continuity and everything, but so yeah. And now the second part. Amazon weren't able to renegotiate. So that investigation we mentioned earlier was not able to let Amazon renegotiate a season 2 MOU. Because here's where things get interesting. So I've got a screen right now. The season 1 MOU and the whole series season 1 to 5 MOU. So this is for the entire series. So Amazon renegotiated two of these. But the thing is that each is which has been discussed is that each season has to have its own MOU, so it has to be renegotiated each season. So season 3 will have one, season 4 will have one, season 5 well not because they're no longer in New Zealand, but
Mm.
it would have. So even though they've got this one for all 5 seasons, they have to renegotiate, and Amazon can leave this contract if they fail to renegotiate a season 2 thing. And as you see here, phase 3, the measurement and evaluation of season 1. I think the second one is meaningful engagement between Amazon and Team New Zealand finalize and agree the terms of season 2 marketing framework and season 2 MOU New Zealand's branding activities. So that is saying, long story short, we have to find an agreement for season 2. So that's the next thing. So I think we have covered just the main bits, and we'll get into our own thoughts in a second. And then just to round up, the non-exclusive thing is that I know people saying, "Are you gonna have?" Oh no, Wolf Fellowship of Fans End because it's happening in New Zealand, and they left New Zealand. What's up into all your sources? Luckily, we have luckily be able to, and also I am UK based as well. Maybe that's not the best decision for Amazon because I think this
Hmm.
might benefit me more than have drawbacks. But so source said that around Pinewood Studios have noted that they were quite surprised that Amazon. It was like the word around it was, "Hey, the Lord of the Rings is here. What's it doing here?" And it was said that nearly as early as late May, Amazon were apparently filming at Pinewood Studios, and they of course they filmed all the way until the wrap date. So what do you think we can take from that?
I find this super interesting, and I'm curious if it had already been their plan to move there permanently at that point. But in any case, that could also mean that certain cast members who would believe that they were done with the season by then hadn't in fact wrapped, but just moved to film elsewhere, like in the UK. And but I also wonder whether they plan on basing the production in Pinewood, the same way they did in Cumeo Studios in Auckland.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Scotland was rumored to have been their prime candidate for filming season 1 back in 2019, I believe, I remember a studio in Leith was heavily speculated to serve as their home. So I'm really curious if maybe that's back in the equation now. Because I've also seen a lot of Scottish websites kind of speculate that the production could be moving to Scotland
And
in
that some
Hmm.
particular.
locations already scouted. I think one of the
Mm.
articles said, remember off
Yeah,
the top of my
yeah,
head.
indeed.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So it
Yeah, it'll be interesting
does.
to see if they stick Pinewood. I think if they do stick to Pinewood, that will be an indication that what they were doing earlier was a sign that they were gonna move things there.
Mm,
And
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I agree.
And I think another thing that we can take from this, the actors I don't think knew, or maybe they might have had 1 or 2 days, but when they all said those goodbyes to New Zealand, I don't think it was forever.
Mm,
I don't think they're thinking like we're saying goodbye forever, because of course I think Morphy Clark, Ismail Cruz Cordova, and but Nazanin Boniadi, they
Nazanin.
yeah,
Mhm.
they all had these
Yeah, but I
things.
think it sounded like to me all those posts on which by the way I thought were very moving, and I
Mhm,
really liked how
mhm.
Nazanin acknowledged like the crew members that normally don't get acknowledged, like
Yeah.
security and stuff like that. So I thought that was really great, but I thought all of their posts mentioned going back to New Zealand only like in a personal capacity.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I
what it
don't,
looked
mhm.
like.
that's
Yeah,
how it read to me.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. I don't think. I think we'll have to see when if the cast knew or not. But and I think one last thing is that from this contract, it just some more little sad things that from New Zealand. So in this MOU there was this innovation fund. So this is because it's basically Amazon. Hey, New Zealand's given us this 5% uplift. That is quite a lot of money. It's 100 million nearly. We might have to, in return, to make this a good gentleman's agreement between Amazon and New Zealand. Let's do have this innovation fund, and it reads recognizing the generous support for New Zealand's government as well as the potential amount of the total projected grant. Amazon is very pleased to establish an innovation fund to support the 5% uplift, and these are fund contributions and the ones below as you can let me just scroll up real quick. It says here immersive technologies, drones, advanced fabrics and materials, virtual tourism, gaming, machine learning, S-space. Is that space? Have I just read S-space is space? Maybe that's a typo.
Must be a typo.
Then innovation fund opportunities as well. Delegation of business / teams from Amazon to visit New Zealand each season, STEM programs, academic research and fellowships. That's quite funny. But I think like Kitty and Carl, I think I'll let you guys take this for a bit. Just your overall feelings around this move and all this information as well that's now come out.
Kyle, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I it's heartening, and I feel the worst for the crew who were likely expecting this to be their livelihood for the next several years, but I think it's also a sign of just the reality of the the nature of the world that we're living in right now, and really a shame. I don't think anyone wanted this to happen, including Amazon, and it's a shame, really.
Yeah, same. I think I feel the most for the crew and New Zealand in general because I knew how much being the Middle Earth meant to them, like, and also meant to the economy, to tourism and everything, and so many jobs just in the film industry just due to this production. So that's what makes me feel really, really sad. I must admit I'm looking forward to seeing some new landscapes possibly taking place,
Yeah.
like representing Middle Earth
Yeah.
as well. Even though I'm kind of curious, maybe they'll just reuse the footage that they've already shot for season one. But then again, I would like to see maybe Scotland, or Northern England or Wales
Yeah,
represent Middle Earth as well.
that's the positive spin I would take from this as well, right? Like
Yeah.
they've got all of Arda to explore, and it makes sense that the production would move around that as well.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, and I think I'm not just saying other crew members are feeling sad just for the sake of let's put it online. Amazon crew members are feeling sad about it. I don't want to go into it too much because a lot of that is confidential, like personal stuff. So I don't want to go out reading all that. But and like there's some people there is legitimately people did not know that they were going to be losing their jobs, and people saying like what it asked me like just all this different stuff around that. And I think this is it is quite sad, but at the same time I feel like Kitty's sentiment in the sense that it is going to be interesting and quite ambitious to see Amazon in Scotland and all these other areas in the UK. Just seeing all the landscapes from being a resident here as well is going to be great as well. So
Well, while we're at that, being an EU resident, I'd like to pitch, other places in EU. Would be very, very happy to host Amazon's show as well.
Well, there's at least 5 seasons, right? So there's lots of time to explore.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
indeed. And just before we wrap up, I just want to clarify that this is all the meanings of today's video, just to explain to you why this has happened, why it's taken place, why they've decided to move, why it's so last minute, and the causations and the consequences this has. Because we saw in the memo of understanding, you have to tell us 12 months or something like that in advance, and of course maybe Amazon, because it was signed between August to December, maybe that clause in there because New Zealand never thought that this would actually come to them, this would actually be a thing. Maybe that's why. So maybe there could be a chance that Amazon, it was signed in maybe September, but then how are you
Mm.
going if it's a new contract signed in September? How are you meant to do that 12 months if it's August and we need to tell you? But then why not wait late the announcement and maybe give New Zealand that time? But at the same time, of course, this has come out of nowhere, and of course, I can tell New Zealand. Of course, from the news, we can all kind of New Zealand is devastated around this. So I hope this
Mm.
provides more just detail into what's happening. But as a more positive note, next week I'm going to be revealing the trailer for season 1.
Can't wait for that one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe I've said that, so maybe by Wednesday you might have the
You
trailer for season 1.
you've had me there for a moment, I'll admit.
Yeah, it was your joke that you said you should make as well. I can't believe how you've fallen for that when it was your joke. But yeah.
Oh well, I really, really like. I'm just so excited to get to see the trailer. So please
Mhm.
don't joke around with our emotions. Bad fellowship.
My bad. But seriously though, we're not going to be in no trailers like that. It's just going next week. Unconfirmed because I have to push so much stuff back. But maybe it will be around more stuff into season 1 of the show and some interesting things around there. I think I'll keep it broad like that. Just some more interesting details about season 1. Story leaks will be a few weeks down the line. Um, so I think should we wrap up now? I think that's a good amount of time. Unless any of you have final thoughts you'd like to say, feel free.
No, that's
I,
that's
Nope.
that's good
yeah,
for me. Yeah,
I
that's
think we covered it all.
yeah.
Mhm. So, and I promise I'll make next week's some more, so you involve both of you in it a lot more. But first of all, thank you, Carl.
Thank you very much, and always great to chat with both of you.
Also, thank you to Lakitia.
Lovely talking to you guys. Take
Mhm.
care.
Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. But until the next video, my friends, goodbye.